Hello, this is Minder Chen. I'm professor of Management Information System at Smith School of Business Economics at CSU Channel Island. This is our second lecture on leadership. Last time we discussed some basic definition of leaderships, and we also present a model which talk about some traits or behaviors of a good leader, as well as the knowledge and skill that may be required by leader. And to start with the second lecture on leadership, let's first look at one classification of leadership style. There's three types of leadership style. One is authoritarian leadership on one extreme at the left. The other is laissez-faire leaderships, which basically the leader doesn't do much. And in the middle is the democratic leadership style, which emphasizes participation and involvement. And the leader's influence are high on the left-hand side at the authoritarian leadership style, and moderate at the democratic side, and then on the right-hand side, the leader's influence or participation is considered the lowest. But let's formally introduce an important theory, which is contingency theory. Here we use plural form for contingency theories because they are, in leadership, there are multiple theories. They are all really based on this original Fiedler's contingency theory. And we will introduce Fiedler's contingency theory on leadership, but also will introduce another one called path-goal theory. And however, in this background slide, sometimes I use the term contingency theory. It really means a general theory that, which means there's no one singular best way to structure organization or to lead your team or organization. And I will go a step further, means that this contingency theory apply to many management principles, which means a lot of principles are not considered the best principle for every situation. Different principle or approach are applicable only to certain situations. So you need to understand the specific situation in order to apply the correct, appropriate principle in managing an organization. So to summarize it, basically we're saying that in terms of leadership, the best leadership style will be contingent on the situation. You can read this pretty easy to read article on Fiedler's contingency theory. So let's kind of quickly explain Fiedler's contingency theory. It's important that you need to understand your situation. And to understand your situation in terms of managing an organization or a team, you need to ask the question, is trust with your team high or low? Which means your relationship or trustworthiness with your team member. Second question is, are tasks vague or clear-cut and well understood? Which means how structured is the task at hand. The third is that your authority, which means your position power, which your formal position, which give you the formal power, is it low or high? And sometimes we may be in charge of something, but we may not be given a lot of power associated with that position. Then in this case, it will be considered low. So those are the 3 questions which listed here is leader-member relationship, task structure, and the position power, and which can be, each one of them can be high and low. What Fiedler has found is that the group performance in this, based on these 3 contingent factors, could be high or low, depends on the leadership style. So he also pointed out 2 leadership style. One is a more relationship-oriented leader. The other is more task-oriented leader. For example, if, let's take this kind of extreme example. When the task structure is low, it's very fuzzy. What we need to do is not very structured, and then you don't have a lot of power, but you have really good relationship with your member. Then if the leader actually take a more relationship-oriented leadership style, the performance would be really good. If you assign somebody who has a more task-oriented leadership style, but the task is very fuzzy, and at the same time, he doesn't really have that positional power for him to tell people what to do, then his performance may not be very good. Okay. One thing not to confuse, this is the existing leader and members relationship, and this is the leadership style, which are not identical. They're kind of overlap a little bit, but not identical construct. So you can kind of go through this. It's a little bit more detailed, but it basically tells you, depends on the situation, on those 3 factors, then sometimes certain leadership style may be good in terms of using more relationship-oriented style, and sometimes it could be the worst. So what this tells us is that if you are flexible leaders, you may need to change your leadership style, depends on the situation. Or assign, if you're top-level manager, assign somebody with certain leadership style in a situation where requires such leadership style for higher performance. So this is the Fiedler's contingency theory on leaderships. So the bottom line, the basic idea for contingency theories, including Fiedler's, is that the best trait and behaviors of leaders in terms of performance depends on the situations. So both the born and the made argument for leaderships really depends on the situations. So we can kind of set the debate aside a little bit. In one study, they look at the leader who are extroversions in terms of personality in a small pizza chain store in terms of its effectiveness. They found that the contingency, they look at it, was the employees' proactivity, how proactive they are, and to determine whether they really need to be told what to do to take care of some work-related issue. And so they found that when employees are passive and proactive, the result in terms of different leadership style are different. When employees were passive, manager was higher, extra versions achieve higher profit, which means higher group performance. But when employees were proactive, they take the task more seriously, then a manager with lower extraversion achieve higher profit. In this case, lower extraversion, which means you pretty much, it's more democratic, or let the worker manage their own work, and that actually end up to be more productive. So this just one study showed that in terms of the leadership style, in terms of or personality, in this case it's a trait. Leaders' trait depends on how effective their leaders' traits are, depends on the member or subordinates' behavior, whether it's passive or active. So there are just a few contingent theory being mentioned, including filters. There's another one called situational leaderships. But we're going to spend time on the past goal theory, which is very similar to the situational leaderships. And in the past goal theory, we classify leadership style into 4 categories. And the theory also suggests when leaders should use which leadership style in certain situations. And all of this contingency theory seems to make sense, but some of them came from practitioners, so may not have a lot of scientific research study to validate it. However, they make intuitive sense, such that it can help you to at least thinking about the situation that you may be dealing with, and what kind of leadership style that you can adapt to, which may be the best for the situation. So the past goal theory, and by the way, this video actually explained the past goal theory pretty well. I strongly encourage you to watch this video. If you're also interested in another contingency theory, which is called situational leaderships, very similar to the past goal theory, here's another video explaining that, but definitely watch this one. This is the style of this video is actually very similar to the Khan Academy. Some of you may know. I'm not sure whether it's the Sal Khan, who's the founder of Khan Academy, delivered this video himself. So the 4 leadership style are supportive leader that provide emotional support, treat employee well, and care about them on a personal level. The directive style leaders provide specific instruction, they clarify expectation, make sure employee know what to do. Participatory leader is like a democratic leadership style, make sure the employee are involved in the decision making. Achievement-oriented leaders, set the goal for the employee, but encourage them to meet the goal, which means that they a lot of time would delegate. But those are the 4 official name for the 4 leadership style: supportive, directive, participative, and then achievement-oriented leader. And certainly in different situations, you will find that supportive leader may work in some situations, maybe more task-oriented situation. The directive, and for instance, when the subordinate or the employee may not know about the task, and the task is pretty structured, then the more directive style may be better. So watch this video, which will explain this pretty well. The power of leaders came from the following source. One is called referent power. The leader displayed some behaviors over time that earn the employees trust and respect. So you need to have some consistency how you deal with employees and also deal with different situations. Expert power. The leader has accumulated relevant subject matter knowledge and skill and experience. And so, for instance, if you put someone who are expert in the retailing business in charge of a computer hardware company, they may not have this so-called expert power. But certainly if the company is moving into the retail sector, then he or she would have the expert power. Number 3 is legitimate power. The leader has ability to reward, sanction, and make appropriate decision. It is important, this is kind of the formal power that has been given to you based on your position and or title. However, when you encounter some people in your organization or in some other business, don't be fooled by sometimes their title. Title in a lot of organizations may not mean much. We sometimes joke about that. Everybody work for a bank has a vice president title because it's easier for them to go out and talk to clients with that impressive title. The power, the official power, a lot of time really is about whether you have the decision right in terms of the budget, money, or the personnel decisions. If you're even the department head, but you don't have any control over the budget or the personnel decision in terms of hiring or firing, then you really don't have much of legitimate power. And legitimate power also has 2 sides. One is coercive power to penalize somebody or to sanction someone, and the reward, more positive power to encourage someone to perform. So ultimately, leadership is the primary mechanism that drives change, and the organizational power is the fuel that enable leaderships to perform their functions. There's some contemporary approaches to leadership. We're going to just mention 2. One is so-called transformational leadership theory, and which identify 2 main types of leaderships. One of them is actually has the same name as the theory, which is transformational leaderships. And the other one is called transactional leaderships. So don't confuse the theory with the leadership style. One is transformational style, the other is transactional style. Transformational leadership style, employees focus on company's well-being rather than individual pursuit, because the leader inspired them to buy into a larger vision. So the leader tends to be very good in terms of inspiring and motivating people with non-monetary reward or praise. And transactional leadership, under the transactional leadership style, employee demonstrate the right behavior because the leader clarify requirement and provide resources or reward in exchange for people meeting the requirement and the performance goal. So which means that if you reach this sales target, then you will be given this much sales bonus. That will be an example of transactional leadership. And the best leader are the flexible leader, which depend on the situation. Sometimes they may be transformational, sometimes they're transactional. You need to kind of put on different hats, depends on the situation. This is what still relate back to the contingency theory, which means there's no one best leadership style. Depends on the the task, the employees, your relationship with the employees, and etc. Then you decide what leadership style is the best. And then you need to be able to switch back and forth, play multiple leadership style. Transformational leaders will lead employee by aligning employees' goal with leaders' goal or the organization's goals. And there are 4 aspects of transformational leaderships. One is individualized consideration. They pay attention to individual, provide coaching, and give employee advice. They are intellectually very stimulated and promote rationality and careful problem-solving tech skill. And they are certainly very inspirational in motivating their employee. They express important purpose for the organization or for the task and communicate high expectations. And the last aspect is idealized influence, which is really a charismatic leader who provide vision and sense of mission and instill pride and gain respect and trust by its employee. The method used by transactional leaders is they will reward people contingent upon their level of performance, and they will reward them fairly according to their performance, which probably has been agreed upon earlier. The bad transactional leaderships, one is laissez-faire, which basically leader avoid making decision because he may not want to take the responsibility or not really have their heart on the work. They just try to stay out of trouble and avoid effort. And management by exception is a popular management approach. And leader only get involved when something goes wrong, and management by exception in a more active way, which means that the leader will actively watch to see if rules are followed and things are going well. They will take corrective action if things are not going well. So this behavior are probably not considered good transactional leadership style behavior. So if we look at summarize the transformational leaderships, the best leader inspires people to buy into a larger goal or vision beyond one's self-interest through the transformational leadership style that include the following behaviors, such as giving individual attention, promoting effective thinking process, communicating important purpose, and providing vision and instill pride. They certainly also practice good transactional leaderships by consistently fairly rewarding employee based on their level of performance. Here's a kind of nice, interesting speech by a U.S. Navy, I believe it's a nuclear submarine captain, in terms of his experience, in terms of leading this new submarine, the submarine that he was assigned to. He was a new captain. Watch it and then think about it. And think about the kind of leadership style that he may apply and why it makes sense and why it may be difficult for other submarine captain to do the same. So it's a short video. I strongly encourage you to watch this video with the link provided here. The next contemporary leadership's approach is called servant leaderships. We kind of consider leader are to rule is to serve, as we often said. So the ruler or the leader is really a servant to the employee or even to the customer that we serve. And so we define the leader's role as serving the needs of others, including employee and customers. The primary mission of a leader is to develop employee to help them reach their goal. Servant leader put their employee first, understand the employee's needs and desire, and empower them and help them to develop the skill and knowledge they needed to advance in their career. So empowerment is very important as a servant leadership style. And in this diagram, it shows that the traditional organizational structures, we have this kind of hierarchy with the command control in mind. Everything is all about the leader on the top. Employees just was treated as tool. Customer tends to be troublemaker, challenged. But the servant-led model, we basically treat employee as resources, customers as value allies, and we will inspire and support the employee, and it's all about the people, including the employee and the customers. So we will put those frontline worker particularly on the top, and the servant leader will be at the bottom to support them. So we kind of turn this organizational hierarchy, the pyramid, upside down in this servant leadership style. So it is important that you may not be a manager, have an opportunity to develop your leadership, but it's anytime you could actually use different opportunity to develop your leadership skill, including this servant leadership skill. For instance, ask what you can do for your employee or for other people that work with you and help employee to reach their goal. And this is important, be humble. If you remember, I think be humble is one of the core value for Zappos. And be open and have more transparent kind of approach with your employees and find way to help external community. So in one article that I found that it quote John Maxwell and said, the leader know the way, goes the way, and shows the way, which means that you need to have a vision, have the courage to lead the way, and show the way is kind of you have the influence to show people, to persuade people to kind of follow your footsteps, to empower them eventually to achieve them. But I will add that empowerment, I would add something called get out of the way. And once you empower your employee, you prepare them, you motivate them, then it is the time to get out of the way for them to perform. That will be the greatest leader. Which bring us to this last slide for this leadership lecture. If you allow me to read the passage, which is a chapter of a Taoism's literature called 道德经 by Lao Tzu. This is a translation by Stephen Mitchell, which is a more modern translation. And it said the following in chapter 17. It says, when the master, you can interpret master as a manager or leader. When the master governs, the people hardly aware of he exists. Next best is a leader who is loved. Next is one who is feared. The worst is one who is despised. And if you don't trust the people, which we're referring to the leader, you make them untrustworthy. They will behave in a way that they seems to be untrustworthy. When the masters, the leader, doesn't talk, he acts, which means you have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. Okay, so the great leader doesn't just talk, or actually they don't talk. They act. When his work is done, his actually here means the employees, the subordinate. When the employees get the works done, the people, they will say, amazing, we did it all by ourselves. They would not credit the contribution to the leader because the leader has already empowered, inspired them, and let them do most of the work. So the leader job has been done a long time ago and probably has been forgotten. So this will be considered the greatest leader. But certainly I hope that the leader's contribution, even in the highest level, is not totally forgotten. Okay, so this is Taoism's philosophy about leadership, which means inspire people, empower them, and get out of the way. Okay, I will get out of my way and for you to learn about leaderships. Thank you and bye-bye.